Holy crap! The Final Fantasy VII Remake is real! It's really happening! And the Kingdom Hearts 3 gameplay trailer looked phenomenal. Secondly, oh, Rare! You've fallen from grace, haven't you? I mean, you were the golden goose and you've been plucked of your feathers and the eggs are rotten when they come out. You're not even a shell of your former self.
I reviewed the first two Banjo Kazooies, and while I said that they aren't the games for me, I can appreciate them for what they are and understand on why people like them and admit that they're good games. Now, most would blame Microsoft for this, but I can't because it's not really their fault. Key people left Rare to form Playtonic, thank God, but this was a decision made by the game's director, Greg Mayles, but a little bit more on that in a bit. But I think you should just watch JonTron's review of this game, as my feelings on it are pretty much mutual. When someone like JonTron, some call me Johnny, or some other more successful YouTubers who are on the opposite side of the spectrum, you know, the ones on the A list while I sit here on the Z grade section, but that's iffy at best. But anyway, if they say a game sucks, I try to see if there's some truth to the exaggeration if they're doing a character, or to see if it's not really as bad as they say that it is. The original concept for this was more of a remake of the first game for the 360, but with more extreme challenges. The second idea was for a traditional platformer, with Gruntilda following Banjo and Kazooie to try and better them. The team thought that making a direct sequel to Banjo-Tooie would be too stale, and the Banjo of yesteryear had no place in the current market, and they wanted to breathe new life into the series. Already you can see the problem we're going to run into. So they added vehicle-based gameplay, and pretty much ripped off the Kingdom Hearts gummy ship building. Greg Mayles wanted to keep the core Banjo-Kazooie experience, but then stated that 80% of the game is vehicle-based gameplay, and the other 20% is traditional Banjo platforming.
Why didn't they just go for 100%? They went so far in replacing the core mechanic, which is platforming. Why even bother pulling out at 80? Although, now that I think about it, going all the way probably wouldn't have stopped this project from being stillborn.
The game is pretty, the graphics are great, and the worlds are visually impressive and have a lot of imagination. The music is pretty good too, and the overall presentation is also pretty good. Controlling Banjo feels pretty natural, but you don't have any of the moves from the previous game. You're given a wrench that can be used as a weapon and to pick things up and move them around. You start in the hub world instead of the more open world type of area that the previous two games were known for. But while those worlds are technically a hub world, Showdown Town is a really obvious hub world. It's pretty much the Isle of Delfino from Super Mario Sunshine. There's a total of 5 worlds with 6 acts, each act having a varying degree of missions for you to accomplish that will reward you with Jiggy pieces. Sounds like business as usual, right? If your answer was yes, oh, isn't that adorable? You think that there's still hope for this game. Well, pretty much every single mission has you using a vehicle, like rescuing someone, moving something somewhere, racing something, getting from point A to point B, and just overall driving. It is so incredibly, unbelievably boring and tedious. I fell asleep playing this game several times, and that's not an exaggeration. I would wake up with my 360 automatically off and my computer in sleep mode. I even fell asleep writing this review. That's how boring this game is. Even writing it put me to sleep. Time stood still while I wrote this. I watched The Hobbit: The Unexpected Journey in its entirety, and only 30 minutes passed. I don't know how that's possible, but it happened. But the game is very functional and functions quite well. The vehicles handle pretty well, and while the ground vehicles feel very slippery when handling sharp turns or when something hits them, the game turns into initial D or maximum tune. But it's not a big deal when the cars go super drifto on you, because you can recover somewhat easily. It's just what you do is boring. The sense of adventure is gone and is more just doing chores for other characters. While you helped NPCs in the previous games, everything intertwined with everything. Unblocking a door would not only net you a reward, but would allow you to progress in a new direction instead of the current one, and some of these areas would connect to older or newer areas, and you could always go back to them later.
It's like they said, you know what made Banjo Kazooie fun? Let's take that out. Oh, wait a minute, the game's director already stated that. In fact, a character in the game known as Log flat out states that no one likes platform games.
In the early beginnings of the game, Log tells you that collecting pointless things is too painful to watch and all people want to do is shoot things and that they need to broaden the demographic. You see, it's this line of thinking that got the game industry into the position that it is in now, where it's all these dark and gritty shooting games. Remember when Squeenix was surprised that Americans liked Bravely Default? But that's a rant for another day. Among Banjo Kazooie fans, from what I can tell from JonTron's video and the people who talk about this game in my comments section, this is pretty much the worst game of this series, and it's because it's a complete and utter betrayal to the series. They're not broadening the demographic, they're shutting their already established demographic by changing up the core gameplay, just to try and attract people that may not be there, which is the same problem the Sonic series has, changing gameplay so much that no one knows what to expect from the series. If they ever do make a new Banjo Kazooie game, which I'll believe it when I see it and even then it can still be cancelled, and they try going with a new gameplay mechanic, it's going to alienate those that like this one and alienate the ones that like the first games even more so. Maybe they should just go back to appealing to the older demographic, the people who like those adventure platform games, like the first ones. There's so much here that could have made this a real Banjo Kazooie game. All the elements are there. There's notes, which are now a form of currency, which kind of makes sense. There's the jiggies, there's people to help, but there's not much in the way of exploration. While the levels were big in the originals, they're even bigger here, but feel so empty, which makes having a vehicle a godsend in that sense. And the mission-based method of progression is annoying, like Sonic 06 annoying. First you talk to an NPC, it loads the mission. You select what vehicle you want to use, or in certain cases Log chooses for you. You complete the objective and then it loads again. It's not as bad as Sonic 06, but it sure likes to bring up those memories. But you didn't go anywhere. Why not just have everything ready to go when you get there? At least then it wouldn't break the immersion. Maybe if the whole vehicle building and vehicle gameplay was optional and not majority of the game, then maybe the game would be better suited to the name Banjo Kazooie. But like Sonic Boom: The Rise of Lyric, it's not a Banjo Kazooie game. It's a game with Banjo Kazooie characters in it. If I wanted to play a vehicle-based game with vehicle missions where I can build and customize my own car, I would play Need for Speed Carbon.
For what this game is, yeah, it's good in a visual, auditory, and functional sense, but as a Banjo Kazooie game, it's probably best thought of as a bargain bin spin-off. I'm just hoping that Yooka-Laylee proves to the publisher overlords that we all enjoy platform adventure games. And next week is my 200th review, and I'm wondering what could possibly go wrong.